I'm Life Johnston, and our idea is, whoopsie, how do you get your friends home safely at the end of the night? Right, we're all intimately aware with the idea of the risks that particularly college students are facing at the moment. There's even a nationwide campaign, It's On Us, that tries to suggest that it's more than just worrying about ourselves. We need to care about the community. We need to care about our friends. We need to make sure that our friends get home safely. And I don't know about you, but I have found that sometimes bad decisions follow impaired judgment. And personally for me, impaired judgment sometimes follows beers. So we want to make sure that we can figure out how to help people if they're out drinking. So big picture, we anecdotally know that there are drinking issues on college campuses. If we look at some statistics, we can suggest there's 21 million college students, and roughly a third of them would self-select that they're likely to drink too much. What's the solution to drinking too much and getting home safely? Fun. That's where we want to come in. It's not about coming down on people. It's not about the dictatorial, the whatever. It's about how can you and your friends take care of your friends and have fun doing it. So what we think that means is a simple and fun group management app that lets you make sure that nobody's left behind. Everybody's location is pinged to you continuously throughout the evening as part of your commitment to a group at the beginning of the night. Brain teasers will be pinged to you if somebody suspects that you might have been drinking too much. And if you're good enough to correctly answer the brain teaser, then you put it back on the person who pinged you. So we start a little competition going there. We're trying to gamify the notion of responsibility. There's also group messaging, a bailout feature if something's gone awry, and emergency help clearly if needed, because those need to be in there. Here's kind of what it might look like. We've put together a group, but you can see the fuchsia list there suggests some of the messages that we've pre-populated. So apparently somebody's looking at my profile and suggests that Rachel thinks that I may have been drinking a little too much. So I'm prompted quickly with a nice brain teaser. If I answer it in time and correctly, I get to put the nudge back on her. If I don't, I get a whoopsie. But in this case, it's not a bad thing, because what if Coke sponsored then my next non-alcoholic beverage to maybe slow me down on the beer train a little bit? So sponsorship integrates with this and is the reward for making things fun. But also, I did get the splot on my face because I did make the whoopsie happen. So there's a leaderboard within our team and across to other teams that we might be competing with. You see a couple of Greek agencies up there. But Rachel just wasn't satisfied. She thought I really needed help, so she hit the bailout button. So now that grabs the crew together. But for some reason, I wasn't exactly where the rest of the people were. So they can immediately pull up a standard kind of map to help them find it. To be fair, it doesn't tell them I'm in stall number 3, passed out, but it does give them the basic idea of where I was. So we're talking about a business, though. So what are the revenue opportunities? If we look at funding, we really can contemplate grant opportunities or potentially a Kickstarter campaign, app fees as the upfront way to get us in. But the downstream revenue is all about sponsorships, partnerships, and shared revenue. Shared revenue, us getting in the middle of the transaction in some way or another. I think the others are fairly straightforward. And again, Coke covers your next one. Let me comment. The cab ride home is an example. We already talked to somebody that said their college would be more than happy to make sure that everybody got a safe cab ride home. I think that's important when we think about some of the things we've seen recently, particularly because I have 2 daughters and I'd like to make sure they got a cab ride home. So big picture, we put in a cost analysis. So what's behind this? We built a JavaScript and HTML front end, a JSON framework, a SQL backend, all so that we can get to the point of understanding what our AWS cost projections might look like based on headcount. So 4,000, 40,000, we're seeing fairly nice numbers that give us a tech assessment to allow us to drive the costing side. We've worked so far with 7 colleges and universities. A number of those are the Title IX people who are responsible for reporting. Virtually everybody in our demographic loved the app and was willing to purchase it. A number of other organizations. But our team's really important. We have a college dean. We have personal group protection, collegiate life coaches, Greek mediators, as well as deep web experience, etc. So our call to action is, you think this was the Hangover movie, it was actually the Whoopsie movie. As you can see, these are all bad Whoopsie moments. We're looking to try and figure out how we can move this quickly. We're looking probably for a cash infusion to help us get downstream. So that's what I had, and I'd be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Lee. That was very impressive.
Thank you.
And thanks for mentioning its pain point for you as your daughters. That's good to know. Does this link with any existing social networks?
Not necessarily. We actually, I skipped over them because of time, but we're looking at a number of partnership opportunities, some of the things that came out of this weekend, and I think there are opportunities to blend it in. Part of the discussion will be to try and figure out what the best solution of those is.
I thought it was great. I happen to be a bit of an expert in impaired judgment.
Ah, man after my own heart.
So I thought there were a couple really usable, cool features. The product placement piece, the brain teaser I thought was also pretty interesting. But I also happened to be here Friday and remember your initial pitch. I'd like to understand your thought process of how you went from where you are to where you are, and what part of that was a business decision versus a user decision.
Right. So we started the weekend off with a couple of notions. One was how could we facilitate or improve the notion of sexual abuse prevention in colleges, and also provide a cab ride home. So there were two things we ultimately combined the ideas, to your point about partnership. We went a step further, and unfortunately, as we look at that issue, it'd be boiling the ocean, essentially. But we looked at the constellation of solutions that were in the space, whether they were apps, whether they were web services, whether there was something else that we could come up with, and we looked and found what was missing, and it really seemed, in our opinion, to focus on these core functions that we built into the thing. Hey, it's got to be fun. If it's not fun, nobody's going to use it, right? And it's got, in our case, the things that seemed to be missing were the things that helped with the alcohol-related incidents. And so we kind of shifted focus there and came up with, I think, a practical answer after a lot of soul searching on how could we make a difference, right? Hey, we're all supposed to try and help take care of everybody, but that's impossible for us to take care of everybody.
Did you get to the point where you were able to validate that through any surveys to know who would pay for that?
Actually, so the net of that is we went to students and we went to people in the broader demographic, which was ostensibly not married and likely to hang out. And basically, we got cash from everybody that we asked cash for. So the net of that, we stopped asking for cash till we were clear exactly where we were going to go, because we weren't going to get enough cash to fund the business. But so the last thing anybody wants to do is fraud. So rather than make the cash collection really complicated, we got 100% validation from the people who are in our demographic. And the parents, oh goodness gracious, I had parents going, how much do you need, right?
So what was the price point from a customer perspective, and what do you foresee as a revenue from corporate partners?
Okay, good. Two good questions. We're shooting for a low, a dollar app, just so you're given something so you commit to it. If you get a free app, I don't know about you, but I don't pay attention to them generally. And the sense was that was not an issue. I mean, if we talk about the local school, Mary Washington, that's 4,500 students, so it's a $9,000 tag. That just doesn't change much at all. So it really goes down to the downstream, get in the middle of some of these rest of these transactions. So we also got the notion of the cab ride home, and we're in the middle of that transaction, so we can work on a revenue component to that. We still have some work on the partnership side and exactly where and how much and how often, but I think we have a great platform to look at that. It's probably going to be largely penetration based on how many users we've got. So we'll just work on the ways that make that. We don't have all of the partnership process validated, I guess is the right answer.
You may have explained this at the beginning, but what's the initial, obviously the safety side of looking out for each other.
Right.
How do all the initial folks, say out of the night, decide they're all part of it?
Yeah, you just pick the people that you want to go out with, and apparently if my behavior continues like that, I might not be allowed to continue in those groups, but so realistically there's probably some learned responses to all that, right? If you keep being that guy, you probably have some behavioral things that you could talk about with others. But we're not necessarily, the goal of it is not to be the heavy hand of your parents, right? Any other questions?
Did you get to a prototype?
Yeah, you saw the mock-ups. There's a HTML thing that sits behind that, and we actually did a Node.js framework to do the JSON validation. I worked on the API that sits behind it, but didn't do a final implementation for a variety of reasons.
Did you get any design feedback from users?
We got a little bit, not as much as ultimately we need.
Sorry.
Okay, no worries.
Judges. All right, good job.
Thank you.